You said this applies to health professionals under the supervision of a physician, so it applies to nurse practitioners and PAs?
Correct.
And how will
to those visits with that have been received that are with a nurse practitioner or a PA? Yes. Does that answer your question? Okay. Go ahead.
Could we get a copy of CMS's letter requesting additional information, the very first one that they sent that stopped the clock?
Well, I don't know that it was a letter that stopped the clock. I don't have that. I believe we may have taken the spa off the clock.
Can we get confirmation of why the clock was stopped, if it wasn't a
Sure.
request from CMS, just to clarify the process?
Sure. Normally, in these circumstances, it's because we're still dialoguing and there's a lot of questions going back and forth, and so we voluntarily take things off the clock occasionally.
Just another question, within that world of beneficiaries, can you speak to what percentage tend to exceed 7 visits today? Because you mentioned that dual eligibles are exempted, right? That's not in statute. So if the department is going to exempt them, I'm just curious as to, again, how many tend to go over that limit or that number today, and then if you know how many of those tend to be duals.
Okay. So yes, we do know. We have researched that. And the data that we've looked at is from the year 2010. It was prior to the move of many of the special populations into managed care. So it's points in time. And I will say, I can't tell you off the top of my head what the number is specifically, but we have looked at it. And for the most part, based upon our review of the claims data and the specific populations, the vast majority of these individuals that exceed the 7-visit cap will meet an exemption and/or exception criteria based upon the diagnostic information that's contained in the claims.
Yeah, if you have any further detail on, the nature, to the extent you can provide it, of those who tended to go over,
Sure.
we'd appreciate that and follow up as well.
Sure. Go ahead.
Are there any differences between the SPA that was submitted in 2011 and the SPA that I'm assuming will be submitted in 2012 or early 2013?
Possibly. I think the gist of the language is going to be the same.
Okay.
I
and that's the expectation is that it's going to be submitted either late this year or early next?
I can't say specifically when, but we're going to continue to work with CMS, and when all of their questions are answered, then we would move forward.
Then you'll submit.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Has CMS approved this in other states in the United States, or is California the first one making this request for those 7-visit limits?
I don't believe so. I'm not familiar with any other states' information at this point in time.
Base or model.
That's correct. We didn't get a preprint page for this particular SPA. Yes.
When this is implemented, does the 7-visit clock start upon implementation, or are prior visits for that year going to be counted in that 7-visit limit?
The 7-visit limit applies to a fiscal year. So say, for example, we were going to implement, we had a tracking system in place and we received CMS approval. This can't happen because we don't have the 60-day time limit. There's a lot of other things that have to fall into place. But say, for example, we were going to implement, just for sake of demonstration here, January 1st. The clock would start January 1st, and it would be the number of visits that occur between January 1st and June 30th. And then for the next year, it would be beginning July 1. You'd count 7 visits for that particular fiscal year. Does that make sense to everybody? Oh, we have more questions. Thank you. Let's see. We've answered the question about when will you be resubmitting the SPA. Yes, we have asked everyone to use their microphone.
I didn't catch the answer on when you would be resubmitting. If
Okay, yes.
Did you give a date certain or
No, we don't have a date certain. We're going to continue to speak with CMS.
And you don't post the SPAs and the amendments on your website?
We do. We do. So the original,
Not until after they're approved, though, right?
the original SPA is posted on our website, I believe.
Because I've looked.
Okay. Okay. Well, with your contact information, we'll make sure that we provide you with the link. Another question?
For the purposes of tribal consultation, it's usually on the website, so you can usually see it as it's going, because there is a period of tribal consultation where it's, for that period, where there is usually the SPA is available. It is incredibly difficult to find on the DHCS website, so probably a direct link is going to be your best bet.
Go ahead.
I don't know if I got it right here that for paper claims, you mentioned that for exceptions. For paper claims, we have to put modifiers in there. Is that correct?
Yes.
And for electronic claims, there would not be any modifier, but there should be explanation and remarks. Is that right?
For the FQHCs, Cynthia, can you help me with this? And you can use the microphone if you like.
So for the electronic and paper claims, if it's not an FQHC, you would use the modifier KX. FQHC RHCs cannot use a modifier on their claims, so they would put a Y. There's a, I think it's an attachment indicator. They would put a Y in that indicator, just would let the claims examiner know that this particular person met an exception criteria, and that information should be placed inside the medical record.
When you put Y, where you put Y?
You would put, I think there's an attachment indicator on your claims field, and you would put Y in that field. So when the claim is adjudicated, they're going to look for that field to be populated with a Y in order to pay that claim. If it's not populated with a Y, that particular claim will count as a physician visit. That's only in the event, in the case of the FQHCs, RHCs, and Indian Health Services. Right.
So we had another question. Any reason we cannot see the draft of the SPA so that we can plan for what you are intending? So the purpose of this meeting is to brief you on what we're intending. We are intending to submit a SPA state plan amendment to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid that limits physician visits to a total of 7 per fiscal year with exceptions and exemptions as outlined in this presentation. So that's exactly what we're going to put forward in the SPA. And normally we don't share the drafts because they're drafts, and we would prefer for you to see what the final version is going to be. But obviously, if you have any comments or concerns with respect to the language that we're proposing to utilize, it's quite similar to what you're going to see in the PowerPoint. We'd be happy to hear from you and talk about your concerns and what your recommended solutions might be. Yes. I have a question on, do you have a microphone? I'm sorry.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question on the answer about the Y indicator and the FQHC bill. Are you meaning that Y indicator should stand for the remark area and they should look in remarks? Okay, so you don't really expect an attachment. You expect us to say Y indicator and put in remarks.
Right.
Because right now when we bill for exceptions, we put in remarks, but we don't put a Y indicator.
Yeah, for this particular policy, you will need the Y indicator.
I saw a couple hands over here again. Yes.
So we're expecting a new SPA number. Just it's for
Same SPA number.
the same SPA number.
Correct.
It's a broader question here. That here is this 7-visit SPA which is going to CMS, and there is, of course, the target is to save some money from on account of medical reimbursements. But then it's not applicable. It's not applicable to certain exceptions, including 21 year and under. So there's limited population there, and there are a lot of exceptions in there. Then there's an expense on fiscal intermediary. Then there's a web-based tracking system. So after all this expenses on those, how much savings the state is looking for under this account?
I can't say specifically. I know that there have been some previous estimates included that were included in the governor's budget, and that they will be included in the governor's budget in January as well. Yes.
Maybe you mentioned this earlier, but is this 7 visits based on statistical use, or I know the CPSP program is based on a pretty middle-class pregnancy of 10 visits. So is this based on any criteria, the 7 visits?
I'm not sure, but I'm going to check with my experts.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Yes, go ahead.
So my question is the 7 visits. Are we talking about that if the person, if the beneficiary is not yet at visit 7, but they're at visit 2, and the provider believes that what he's treating this person for on this 3rd visit is an exemption?
Is or is not an exemption?
Or is an exception?
Okay.
Would they be filing that right there at visit 3 so that those didn't count? So it's not like people have to wait till visit 7.
That's correct.
From
visit 1 through 7, if they meet exemption or exception criteria, do it right then.
I see. And then as far as the Y indicator and all that on the UV, are you going to be showing examples of that with, as we
In the provider manual? Yes, of course.
We'll have all that.
Absolutely. There'll be a training.
Thank you.
Do we have any additional questions? Let's check online. Don't think so. Anything else, anyone? Okay, so with that, I guess we're going to conclude. We will have a listserv for those of you that participated and responded to the meeting request today. We'll automatically include you in that listserv. If you did not get a meeting notice from us directly and you want to be on the listserv, please make sure that we have your contact information. I think that there's a sign-up sheet that you have right here because we want to be able to continue to communicate with you. It's been over a year since we had our last meeting about this particular state plan amendment, and so we wanted just to bring you up to date, and we want to keep you informed as we move along. So thank you for your participation today. Thanks for your good questions, and keep communicating with us because it's helpful as we go through the process.